Good evening. The images of desperate people trying to leave Afghanistan have shocked the world. Here in London, thousands have added reason to be concerned as they worry for family and friends who have woken up under Taliban rule. The chaos of the last few days mean many are struggling to even find out what has happened to their loved ones. Others know all too well their relatives are being hunted for the work they do. We've been speaking to some of those Afghan Londoners powerless to help but consumed by fear. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the latest.
They might be thousands of miles from danger, but these are frightened people. At a community centre in Feltham, Afghans living in London were desperate for news of their families. The chaos in Kabul and other cities makes it difficult to get accurate information, but some have made contact. Idris, not his real name, called his sister, who's fled her home and is now in hiding.
They had to go and somewhere like in a location that no one knows where they are, and she's really afraid if they know where they are, because at the moment the Taliban are inside the house and searching for them.
For those who have got through, it is a familiar story.
The Taliban now, since they have the control over the city, searching house by house. If they found anyone who were working as a translator or as a journalist or who were working in the media or in the civil society, they will target them, they will kill them.
Arifa has spent 3 days glued to the TV, fearing for her family. She was a child when the Taliban last ruled Afghanistan, but 14 years ago she escaped to begin a new life in London.
It makes me feel so upset that how 20 years development, investment in women education, capacity building, a civil society, everything is just suddenly left it behind. I was like having flashback, and I was feeling every single minute that what I experienced that time as a child, how scary for me, that I was scared that I would be forced in a forced marriage, Taliban would take me forcefully from my family.
The television pictures from Kabul are chilling. People desperate to get on a plane mobbed this American transport aircraft as it tried to take off. The withdrawal of Western forces has left some MPs here questioning the operation.
What we've seen is a rush to the door in order to make a 20-year anniversary deadline and good PR. Well, look what's happening now. It's absolute chaos. And it's yet another error in a long series of errors when it comes to Afghanistan.
On Wednesday, MPs will return to Parliament for an emergency debate on the crisis. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Well, over the last 20 years, soldiers have left the capital to fight in Afghanistan, leaving behind their family and their lives. One of those was Chris Baudret-Churio. He was in the Territorial Army when, along with others, he left his day job in London on the first deployment of Army reserves to Helmand province in 2007. Our political correspondent Simon Harris was there with him. Chris spoke to Simon today of his pride at the part he played and his despair at what is happening now.
We were a force for good, and every action was an action in the direction of helping Afghanistan.
Chris Baudret-Churio is a husband, dad and businessman. But 14 years ago, he was a British soldier in Afghanistan, and he thinks the rapid exit of Western forces is a disaster.
As a family man, as a parent, I feel fear for the unknown, for the families that have to now live with that uncertainty, that their security forces have abandoned them, that the infrastructure that they've become dependent on ceases to exist as they know it.
In 2007, ITV News travelled to Helmand province with a group of soldiers from the London Regiment. They were reservists sent to a war zone. Chris was one of them.
Sometimes it feels like hell's front door, you know.
He was part of a helicopter crew which rescued injured soldiers and civilians.
It doesn't really hit you, what's actually happening as such. You see the casualties, you see the extent of their injuries, but because everybody's very professional about doing their jobs, we all sort of muck in together.
He's convinced many of the Afghans they came into contact with welcomed the change to their lives.
You could see how they wanted to embrace that change, and you could see it in the kids who enjoyed eating our sweets. You could see it in in the elders who would bring their children out and you know, would enjoy sharing our food. We owe it to the people of Afghanistan, and not just this country, but the US as well. We owe it, given the task that we undertook, to see the task through.
The London Regiment spent 6 months in Afghanistan as part of the British operation to suppress the Taliban. Today, the Taliban is back in control. Seeing how it was is a painful reminder.
To lose those gains is really distressing, but fundamentally what it means for the local population, you know, that's upsetting, to say the least. And I really helplessly feel for those guys and girls, because, you know, there's no way of being sure of what will happen in that area now.
Are you angry with the politicians?
I think I am.
Despite the way Britain's involvement in Afghanistan ended, Chris is proud of the part he played. It wasn't, he says, a waste of time. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Good evening. The plight of Londoners trapped in Afghanistan was raised in Parliament today, and for those trying to get back home, it is a race against time. The safety of the British evacuation effort in Kabul is entirely dependent on how long the Taliban cooperate. Last night, a London councillor did manage to get out on a repatriation flight back to the UK. She knows she was one of the lucky ones. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
Paymana was one of the lucky ones. It was a tense journey.
Oh my God.
But she made it to a British military base in Kabul and 5 hours later was able to board an RAF cargo plane to safety. Today, Paymana, who's a councillor from Harrow, is in a quarantine hotel in the UK.
The tragedy of the situation really hit me when we approached the military base at the airport, and there were hundreds of people on both sides of the convoys. And they could see me and I could see them, and they were looking directly at me. And I just looked at them and I thought, that could have been me.
But MPs heard today there are other Londoners who are not so fortunate.
I join everyone who's urging the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary to do everything they can to help UK nationals, including my constituents, who are stranded and in hiding in Kabul and desperately needing to get back home to the UK.
There is no easy route out. Roads to Kabul airport are gridlocked. There are Taliban checkpoints, and some are simply too scared to risk the journey. I've just spoken to a Londoner who's in hiding after going to Kabul to look after his disabled father. He's asked us to call him Mohammed. It's not his real name. And this is what he told me.
At the moment, my biggest worry in Kabul is basically being caught and found by the Taliban. They're out and about in the city looking for people to just stop, harass and question. The thing is, we're in hiding. We've been moving around as much as we can to different relatives' houses. From what we're hoping to get from the government in the UK is a way out, because at the moment there is no way out from Afghanistan.
In Parliament, MPs recalled from their summer holidays wanted to know why Kabul was allowed to fall.
In July of this year, both President Biden and my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, indicated that they did not think that the Taliban was ready or able to take over control of the country. Was our intelligence really so poor?
Can the Prime Minister explain why he so misjudged the situation in Afghanistan that he told this House back on the 8th of July, and I quote, "I do not think the Taliban are capable of victory by military means."
The Labour leader criticised the Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary for being on holiday.
You cannot coordinate an international response from the beach. A dereliction of duty by the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary.
The Prime Minister defended Britain's decision to withdraw from Afghanistan.
The West could not continue this US-led mission, a mission conceived and executed in support and defence of America, without American logistics, without US air power, and without American might.
Tonight, Londoners trapped in Kabul are hoping their pleas for help will be heard.
Simon, lots of debate today, but it is about 3 or 4 days since Kabul fell. So will any of this have any impact?
But remember, MPs are on holiday for the summer, and this was their one chance to put on record their concern and, in some cases, anger at what's happened, how the crisis has been handled, and to ask important questions. MPs from all sides were keen to underline what they see as the government's shortcomings by quoting previous statements made by ministers. There were some passionate speeches from MPs who've served with the British forces in Afghanistan, and as we've heard, it was also a chance for MPs to appeal for help on behalf of those constituents who are desperate to get home.
OK, Simon, thank you.